the United States and the Soviet Union. These two powerful nations, seemingly worlds apart, found themselves united against a common enemy during World War II, Nazi Germany. This alliance, forged in the fires of conflict, seemed improbable at the outset. The US, a capitalist democracy, and the USSR, a communist state, had vastly different ideologies and systems of government. Yet the shared threat of fascism brought them together in a desperate struggle for survival. The US and the USSR played crucial roles in defeating Hitler's war machine. The US provided vital supplies and military support to the Allied forces. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union bore the brunt of the fighting on the Eastern Front, enduring unimaginable losses in their struggle against the Nazi invasion. The Red Army's tenacity and sacrifice were instrumental in turning the tide of the war. Their combined efforts led to the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany in 1945. The world breathed a collective sigh of relief as the horrors of the war finally came to an end. The alliance between the US and the USSR had been a crucial factor in this victory, a testament to the power of cooperation even between nations with vastly different ideologies. However, beneath the surface of this wartime alliance, tensions were already brewing. The seeds of mistrust and suspicion were sown, hinting at the conflict that would soon grip the world, the Cold War. The alliance, born out of necessity, would soon give way to an era of geopolitical rivalry unlike any other. Even as the US and USSR celebrated their joint victory, the foundations of their alliance began to crumble. The shared goal of defeating Nazi Germany had temporarily masked their fundamental ideological differences and geopolitical aspirations. With the common enemy vanquished, these underlying tensions quickly rose to the surface. The Soviet Union, devastated by the war and suspicious of the West, sought to establish a buffer zone in Eastern Europe. They installed communist governments in countries like Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia, much to the alarm of the United States. The US, adhering to its vision of a world based on democracy and free markets, perceived this Soviet expansionism as a direct threat to its interests and the stability of Europe. The ideological clash between the two superpowers further fueled the growing rift. The US, championing capitalism and individual liberty, viewed the Soviet system of communism as inherently oppressive and expansionist. The USSR, on the other hand, saw the US as a bastion of capitalist exploitation, bent on global domination. This fundamental clash of ideologies, coupled with mutual suspicion and a lack of trust, created a fertile ground for the Cold War to take root. The wartime alliance, once a symbol of hope and cooperation, had dissolved into a bitter rivalry. The world watched with bated breath as the two superpowers, armed with nuclear weapons, locked themselves in a high-stakes standoff that would define a generation. The Cold War was not a war in the conventional sense, with large-scale battles and front lines. It was a war of ideologies, of influence, and of constant maneuvering for global dominance. As the Cold War intensified, a metaphorical Iron Curtain descended across Europe, dividing East from West. This division was both physical and ideological, separating the communist nations of Eastern Europe, now firmly under Soviet influence, from the capitalist democracies of Western Europe, aligned with the United States. Winston Churchill, the wartime Prime Minister of Great Britain, famously declared in a 1946 speech that an Iron Curtain has descended across the continent. This stark imagery captured the reality of a divided Europe, where movement of people, goods, and ideas was strictly controlled. The Iron Curtain became a powerful symbol of the Cold War, representing the ideological and physical barriers that separated the two blocs. Berlin, the former German capital, became a microcosm of this division. Located deep within Soviet-controlled East Germany, Berlin was itself partitioned, with the western part of the city remaining under the control of the US, Great Britain, and France. The construction of the Berlin Wall in 1961, a concrete barrier erected by East Germany to stem the flow of refugees to the West, became an enduring symbol of Cold War division and oppression. The world watched anxiously as the two superpowers engaged in a tense standoff, each side determined to contain the other's influence and spread its own ideology. The Cold War had created a bipolar world, where every nation was forced to choose sides in this ideological struggle. This division had profound consequences, shaping international relations, influencing domestic politics, and fueling conflicts around the globe. As the world teetered on the brink of chaos, uncertainty became the new norm. People everywhere felt the tension in the air, a palpable sense of unease that was impossible to ignore. Nations, once allies, now eyed each other with suspicion. Every decision, every move, seemed to carry the weight of the world. In this fragile balance, the hopes and fears of millions hung in the balance. The world, it seemed, was on edge, and the path forward was anything but clear. Espionage and covert operations played a crucial role during the Cold War. Both the United States and the Soviet Union invested heavily in intelligence gathering, often through clandestine means. Spies, double agents, and covert missions became the norm, with each side trying to outmaneuver the other. This shadow war was fought in the back alleys of Berlin, the streets of Washington, and the corridors of power in Moscow. It was a game of cat and mouse, where information was the most valuable currency. The end of the Soviet Union marked a significant turning point in world history. In 1991, after years of economic stagnation and political turmoil, the Soviet Union was officially dissolved. This event signaled the end of the Cold War and led to the emergence of 15 independent republics. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 had already set the stage, but it was the dissolution of the Soviet Union that truly marked the end of an era. This moment was met with both celebration and uncertainty, as the world adjusted to a new geopolitical landscape. Even after the end of the Soviet Union, tensions between the United States and Russia did not simply vanish. The 90s saw a period of relative cooperation, but old rivalries soon resurfaced. Issues such as NATO expansion, conflicts in the former Yugoslavia, and differing approaches to global security have continued to strain relations. The rise of Vladimir Putin and his assertive foreign policy further complicated matters. While the Cold War may be over, the legacy of distrust and competition still lingers. As we look to the future, the question remains, are we in a cold peace or on the brink of a new Cold War? The relationship between the United States and Russia continues to be fraught with challenges. Cybersecurity threats, election interference, and regional conflicts have all contributed to a complex and often contentious dynamic. Both nations have expressed a desire for stability, but mutual suspicion and competing interests make this difficult to achieve. The future of U.S.-Russia relations remains uncertain, and the world watches closely, hoping for a path that leads to lasting peace.